Video, I'm going to explain to the best of my ability how to create your own class and do all sorts of good stuff with that. So, to start off, you get the name of your class and you create these variables. I mean, make them private because you don't want people messing with your variables, you know? So you make those private, and I got string name, Boolean newsletter, and int items purchased. So I'm using the shopper class that we had to create from the assignment that we had to do. Hope that's not a problem, but it just seems kind of easy because instead of writing whole new code, I can just use this. So with those variables and all this stuff up here, you have your public shopper, and this is going to create the shopper person that's going to have all these variables to them. So in here, we're assigning the variables name, newsletter, and items purchased. We're giving them these default values. So every time you create a shopper, it's going to have these values to these variables. And then we have these other methods here like set name, set newsletter, and set items purchased. And you can set them to whatever you want, and it uses this dot because it's changing it in the shopper class here. So if you wanted to change the name, you would do whatever the name of your shopper is, dot set name, and then in here you'd put the string, whatever you want to make their name. And same thing with the newsletter, except you wouldn't put a string in there, you'd put true or false. And with items purchased, I have this little condition statement in here to test if whatever int you put in here is greater than 0, because you can't have negative items purchased. So also we can use getters to get the private variables and display them or do whatever you want with them. And here I have the get name, get newsletter, and get items purchased. And this just returns the name. It just returns the variable. It's pretty self-explanatory. And then here we have this toString method, which basically just returns the variables in kind of a print manner that's pretty nice to see. So we got the shopper's name, then it displays the name, newsletter, then the status of the newsletter, and then the items purchased and how many items were purchased. So I created this little main method. Hopefully we can see that here. So in here we have shopper n equals new shopper. So we created the shopper, and it was assigned these default values here. And right here we're printing out the shopper to string, so it has the no name, false, and 0, which is the default values that were originally set to the shoppers, until we set the name, we set the newsletter, and we set the items purchased. And we can see that here, Christian, true, and 5. And as we can see here, this is just an example of the getters. So I got the name, and it fetched the name. You can only do this with any of the variables, so the newsletter, the items purchased, as long as there's a method to returning the variable. Because if you just put something in here that said n dot name or whatever, there's no way you could get the variables without getters. So that's just the quick explanation of classes. So yeah. And the reason why you can't just get the variables without a getter is because the variables are set to private.